Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
How are you today, Donna? This is Health,
Great,
Wellness, and
great.
Lifestyle with Linda Dorman
Yes.
and Dr. Donna Christensen on this beautiful Wednesday in the what we call the DMV for those who are listening and viewing from other places outside of Washington, D.C.,
And in the Virgin Islands,
and in the beautiful, amazing Virgin Islands. Dr.
back here.
Christensen,
Mhm.
I am so glad to see you. I'm glad to see your wall standing, your furniture intact, and
Yeah, we've been very fortunate so far. A lot of
you
water,
a
but
lot of water, but
yeah,
nothing
a
like
little
we've
rain, but
seen
no
in
damage
Florida and other
from, and
parts.
that was from Ian.
Yes, yes. So we're grateful that it didn't hit our beautiful Virgin Islands, and we pray for
Right.
those who have been remarkably impacted by it because of the,
Yes.
the mental health, the physical health, the financial health implications are staggering. So
Right. And we'll be talking about that next week. With
we'll be talking about that next week.
yeah.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Hmm.
But this
But
week,
yeah, go ahead.
wow, we continue our conversation. We had a little bit of a break, and we hope our audience enjoyed some of our rebroadcasts, and we appreciate and thank you for doing so and tuning in to those important messages that have come in the past. But we pick back up where we left off with Dr. Vincent Hayes talking about men's health and another area of men's health with Dr. Eric Griggs. I'll let you do the honors of introducing him.
Sure, we're going to bring him on right now. So Dr. Griggs is a New Orleans-based community medicine doctor and health educator. He's dedicated his professional life to raising health and wellness awareness in communities, not only in New Orleans, but around the country. He's an assistant professor at LSU School of Medicine, adjunct professor at Xavier College of Pharmacy, and has continued his role as director of community medicine at Access Health Louisiana. He is also proudly the founder and executive director of the Doc Griggs Foundation, and Doc Griggs is his health and wellness awareness persona. The Doc Griggs Foundation is a community driven, student activated, and professionally mentored organization that promotes community health by empowering the community to get checked, get fit, and get moving. Just a couple more things because we'll learn a lot more about what Dr.
Yeah.
Griggs does as we begin our discussion. But he's an active participant in several organizations. He's been a spokesperson for the American Cancer Society. He's a former chairman of the American Heart Association's Multicultural Leadership Committee, and he's still a member of the Greater Southeast Affiliate Multicultural Initiatives Committee, which I notice has Puerto Rico in it, but they need to bring in the Virgin Islands. Yes. So, welcome, Dr. Griggs.
Thank you.
We met at the Congressional Black Caucus annual legislative conference where we served on a panel um, on obesity. I left out the most important thing relevant to what we're talking about today. He's the health and wellness chair for 100 Black men of Metro New Orleans and also serves on the 100 Black Men International Health and Wellness Committee.
Can I
And
also add something because we didn't
sure.
have a chance to do this is to welcome a co-host in the real sense because Dr. Griggs is also has his own Wellness Wednesday program
Yes.
out of New Orleans. And so we hope you're not missing your program by joining ours today, but we're glad that you're here where you appear on The Good Life with Eileen Carter. So called Wellness Wednesday. And we thank you for that. So you've got let's unpack it all. Let's get, my goodness gracious.
Yeah, and we want to focus a lot on men's health today, but you wear so many hats. I'm sure we can get to all of them.
Well, first of all, thank you all for having me. It's truly an honor and a privilege. Anytime someone wants to hear what you have to say, we're all in the same space trying to create healthy communities because, after coming through the pandemic, we really have to be our healthiest and best selves moving forward.
Hmm. Absolutely.
We really do. And I often wonder why is that simple concept so difficult for us to embrace as individuals? Are we pushed and pulled? Are we oversensitized by other things that distract us? Are we believing that we have infinite amounts of time to make course corrections? In your practice, I know that you're called the every man's doctor. I'm curious about that because I'm wondering if this is a group, are men in their health, if this is a group that believes that I can address it tomorrow and not get to exactly what you just stated.
Well, I think the answer, first of all, to your question is yes on all points. But I think it's actually more of it actually starts when we're young. I do this. We did a men's health initiative in Turks and Caicos. We do them here in the United States, especially here in New Orleans. And the prevailing attitude amongst men is the exact same, myself included. When you're a kid, not now, but I understand the thinking. Because when you're a kid, as a little boy, every time you go to the doctor, it's a bad experience. You're either getting a shot, you broke something, you're sick. All they do is tell you what you can't. You're allergic to this, you can't do this, you can't play this, you can't go to the party. And then when you get old enough to start playing sports, they have a finger exam where they start checking for hernias. And it's to say uncomfortable is not the word for it. You don't know what's going on. So every little boy at some point says, you know what? When I get old enough, I ain't never going to the doctor again. And we don't. We turn 18. If you play college sports, if you go into the military, you have to go. You have to go to the doctor. It's not comfortable. You're picked and prodded and poked, the whole nine. But again, between 18 and 22, you're in the epitome of health. We're superheroes in our own minds. Well, all that works fine until you hit about age 30, I'll say. We still think that we're the superhero, but real life kicks in. And you start to get a job, and you start to get in relationships, and you have kids. So you have a bunch of other things that you have to be aware of, and all that superhero that you had up top starts to go to other places. So you feel like you might want to go to the doctor, get a checkup. The doctor tells you that you're pre-diabetic, pre-hypertensive, and you tell you, I will never see you again because you don't know what you're talking about. All I need is 2 weeks, and I'll be in shape. Well, that 2 weeks typically turns into 5, 7, 10 years. Life has added more of itself to your waistline, and you get a headache, or you get something that just doesn't seem right, and you go back to the doctor. Now you're diabetic, you're hypertensive, you're 40, and you're like, the doctor says, I want to give you these pills. And the man is always concerned about being a strong man, and sometimes those pills allow him not to be all of the man that he thinks he should be. So, of course, do it again. I'm never going to the doctor again. Fast forward to age 50, and they want to do a prostate exam. Then you have to get the colonoscopy. But sadly, if you make it that long, a lot of times it can be too late. We end up with prostate cancer, or we have a cardiac event. As opposed to our young ladies, when you're little girls, when a young lady transforms and matures into a young woman, they start this annual visit. And typically there's nothing wrong. It's not the most comfortable, but it's a visit. Who's your boyfriend? What are your grades? When you getting rid of him? Well, you just talk, and it becomes a relationship. So there's a trust that's built. So checking up on your body, that's one of the reasons why women typically live 7 years longer than men. It's our fault, but it's not our fault. It's like we wait until it's too late. Like it's not that we think that there's more time. We just don't want to go.
Until there's pain. It has to be something really uncomfortable that makes you go, or like some folks that I know, their wife says, you go to the doctor and get your prostate exam, or or else.
Or else.
I'm going to just leave it at or else.
Yeah, or else. And that or else has saved more lives than a life preserver, that or else. Because I tell you this, in the men's world, fine and good are 4-letter words. Hey man, how you feeling? I'm fine. What the doctor say? Nothing. What did he say? I'm fine. Well, how was your cholesterol? It was good. What was your blood sugar? Good. You lying. We lie. We absolutely lie. For the sake of our masculinity and thinking that we can just lay down or we can just handle it ourselves, and we obviously can't. That's what the numbers show.
Right, and I in my practice, trying to treat men for hypertension, the minute you give them a prescription, there's a friend that has that big red book, the PD, whatever.
Yeah, Pharmacopoeia. Yeah.
Yeah. And he checks it out and tells them, your sexuality could be hampered by
Your soldier will not stand up and fight if you take that pill.
Well, you know, we on our
Every
last
way to
program, Dr. Griggs, we had a very just content-rich program on the topic of erectile dysfunction, and learned that performance really shouldn't be the thing that's focused in on, but your cardiovascular health throughout, because that's a precursor to understanding that you're in a cardiovascular event. And it over time, it will grow and get worse, either in a stroke or a heart attack, or you've already experienced something along those lines. And the natural evolution of what that means in terms of treatment and care. And I'm glad to hear you say, you know, that you start with the young men, the future men who are going to be responsible for their health, and work towards normalizing what that means to go into. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but normalizing this wellness checkup at a very early age. I'm just curious to know, how do you go about that? I mean, I have two daughters, and it's tough. So, you know, we talk about a lot of things. They're adolescent girls, but I often think about all their male counterparts and just wonder what's happening with them too.
So part of the issue is that, you know, with the 100 Black men, we say what they see is what they'll be. And one of the issues that you have with men, I'll say us, lying when we go to the doctor, is that nobody goes with us. Well, did you go to the doctor? Yep.
Oh.
Sometimes I don't go at all. Did you go? Well, not me personally. Hold on, wait. Not me. I'm just saying the generic. Sometimes we don't go at all. Or if we go, we don't tell our family members what the bad news is. So we always want someone to go with them. So the answer to your question, when I'm giving talks to men about their health, I'm like, well, why don't you, it's a very scary experience for the little boys to go to the doctor. So why don't you start the habit of going with them? Once a year, football is a big thing. Once a year, why don't you and your son, your niece, your son, your nephew, or your mentee, go to the doctor. Go to the doctor with them to get your checkup before football season, to get in shape. If you start the habit of going to the doctor with your child now, your child can start the habit of going to the doctor with you when it counts as you get older.
Oh, that's good.
Does that make sense? It demystifies it on both ends. You can ask those uncomfortable questions. You know, if you want to talk to an adult, speak to a child.
Yes.
If you go to the doctor with the child, you can ask all those questions under the guise that, you know, he doesn't understand. Can you explain that again so he understands it? And the kid sees the example of asking questions so they're not intimidated as you get older. You want to test for a hernia. Why do you have to take your finger and do that? Answering that question and knowing that, well, explain it to him. Now, I might have never known all my life, but it's a great thing if I'm with my kid and you're explaining to him, so I know it now. And then the kid gets comfortable asking those questions. And the other thing, especially when you talk, those kids get to actually see a doctor and realize this is not an intimidating profession. This is something that I can do, and I'm actually helping. And all the way from the cradle to the grave, you have a partnership throughout and accountability.
And let me just say for our listeners, because we broadcast both on stream television Roku through our TV.network, but we also have our radio listeners in from WSXT radio out Bloomberg, out of the Virgin Islands. So the finger, you're doing something motion, is really the rectal finger.
No. That
was the hernia.
That finger is scary for. Yeah, that's scary for a little boy, because that finger is actually, it tests like right on the back of the testicle to go out and into the inguinal canal to test for a hernia. So that same finger that you're scared of as a child is the same finger that you're scared of as an adult. It just has two different purposes. But no matter what, it's a wag, and the finger you get home to your wife or your family is a wagging finger. So we're scared of the finger. If you don't want this finger, you better go to the doctor.
Wow. Well, maybe that's a campaign that we need to develop and talk about. The finger is not always a bad thing.
It's not always a bad thing.
It's not always a bad thing. I'm glad you made that distinction so that, you know, we wouldn't have our viewers in particular and the listeners kind of confused about what is this. So that's important to understand, that these examinations come from highly qualified clinicians. They know what they're looking for. They know what they're feeling around for, and therefore it makes good sense. And maybe there's a pathway for creating comfort for the patients, both young and old, to better understand is that trust pathway, but maybe there's other pathways in bringing down the anxiety that often is felt when you go into the doctors. And yeah, you're right, that finger can be very intimidating.
Yeah, especially if a doctor has big hands. That's what I get all the time. Doc, you can be my doctor. You got big hands. But man, my hands aren't that big. The thing is, the important thing is creating a dialogue. Everything, communicating, over communicating, knowing that in the sender message receiver equation, that there's a bidirectional arrow, meaning that I learn from the patient as the patient would learn from me. We learn from each other, because there are going to be cultural differences in each different communities, and those could vary from street to street, block to block, city to city.
Can you share with us a little bit of what does it mean? And I know, Dr. Christensen, you met Dr. Griggs and brought him up, but I'm just so curious. I think I get all my little quick questions out.
Go ahead.
One of them is we hear so many things about community health, about support groups, about population health, on and all these terminologies. How do we help the consumer of health, the patients, their families digest all these terms? What is actually, so that's one question to, meaning what does community health education mean? Are you in the hospitals? Are you in the schools? Are you in both? Are you, how would one interact with you under the banner of community health education as a young man?
Part of my job, I do community medicine, and I teach students, and I teach anyone who will listen, the community. Community medicine and community health is 3 Ps. It's people, it's practice, it's policy. The problem that we had, that we all saw when the pandemic hit, was that the right people are never in the policy room. So when you go out to talk about the practice of everyone go inside, no one understands the jargon, and we want to know why. The big problem we do ourselves, and I say this carefully because I've had students get offended, but we do a lot of times, we do our kids a disservice by telling them they're smart. In my household, SMART was an acronym for a simple mastery of accepted and repeated theory. The reason that I know 2 + 2 is 4 is because someone taught it to me, and that they put it on a test, and I was able to give it back. And because I was able to do that over and over again, oh, he's so smart. Oh, he's smart. He's so smart. The community is going to rally and send him off to college, where he's going to go to med school and learn all these big words and these acronyms. And then we're going to unleash him back on the community, speaking all these big words. And everyone, because they're so proud of him, is going to smile. Do you understand what he's saying? No, but he look good.
They're smiling.
No, they look good. And Dr. Christensen, you run into it in the office, the exam room office. Well, you have hypercholesterolemia, hypertension, and you have type 2 diabetes, and we did hemoglobin A1C. But I think you'll be fine. You understand? And everyone goes, yeah, I understand. And when you go back and ask, as a med student, I'm like, do you know what she said? No, I don't understand, but she looked good. Don't she look smart? So the goal of community health education and community medicine is to be able to actually respect your community and talk to them in terms they understand. The same community that sent you off and supported you while you were getting your education to learn all the big words and to be in the policy rooms, that same community is a community you need to be able to respect enough to make sure that they understand your message. My grandmother always said that the purpose of us sending you to all this school and for you to be a doctor, it's your God's gift. And the purpose of that is for you to give it away. Give it away. Don't worry about the money. It'll pay for itself. They got jobs. But every interaction that you have with someone, you do that, in the church, they do the call and response. I say A, you say A. I say A, you say B, C. You do the call and response to make sure that the audience captures the message and gives it back to you. And a lot of times, like I was in DC last week. I was there for a Nobel conference, and I worked with a group called Grapevine Health. We went on the street, and we just started asking people about what healthy meant and what healthy things they could do. Wow. And I tell you, it was some of the most brilliant answers that I did ask permission. I was about to say I co-opted a stove, but I didn't steal it because I asked first. They talked about being angry. One of the best things you can do for yourself is never to get angry. Don't allow yourself to get angry, because it deals the effect that it has on your mental health and the stress on your body. And these were not doctors. So if you take the SMART acronym off and allow yourself to be a person with a gift that you're allowed to study, to give your portion and contribute back to the community, everything gets a lot easier. The dialogue gets easier. So my job with community health education is to educate the entire community on these big words and concepts and terms so that they understand it and can give it back to me in a way that we can come up with a practice that'll work for everyone. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense, and I applaud you for doing that. And I'm sure that the communication is age appropriate.
Yes.
And I like I like the response, the church response. You say A, I say A, because then that checks whether or not there's a transfer of knowledge, and that knowledge has somehow where they can become advocates, they can be conduits of more information to the next person. So that's critical. And I don't know if that's embedded in all of healthcare practices at the provider level.
It would be nice.
So one of the
nicety.
It would be nice, but it's not always there.
It's not always there. One of the pearls I try to give people is that if you're talking to an audience, like it doesn't matter the audience, the education level, start at third grade. If you start at my grandmother said, if you can't explain it to a child, you don't know it. So if you start at third grade and build your level of detail based on questioning, you have a fruitful conversation. Does that make sense?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, then how do we, it's so interesting because social media, and I'm so glad we're talking about this young group, because you're right, it starts here. And given the quality of the food sources, given the just the activities that a young person engages in a 24-hour span, including, some sleep, the fact that they're not drivers of their own health in terms of seeing through a health issue. And sometimes they don't even raise the concern. They may have an ache, they may have an issue, they may have, you don't examine your teenager like you did your baby. All over and everything. You don't do that any longer, or you get another group of people involved in your life. The point I'm trying to make is that how do we meet them at where they are so that we can make that a remarkable impact and get to the transparent conversations? Because I know that HIV/AIDS, as an example, in this Prince George's County area, is still a one of the health issues that we're really impacted by. And you would think that after 30, 40 years, it would be different, but it's not. It's still growing. So how do we talk about these issues especially with young men? This is a key.
So one of the best things, the most things that's best practice that I've had over the years is, talk to them. Literally get down on their level, sit at a level table, and just ask them questions. What are they thinking? And respect them. Kids have a voice, and they have opinions, and they have perception, and amazing things come out of the mouths of children. Wise, old soul things come out of the mouths of children. And if you're there and you just let them talk and listen to the conversations, you'll hear a lot of solutions, and you'll be able to correct a lot of misinformation that's been put there, because they want to learn and they want to feel comfortable and they want to know. Growing up with my grandmother every day, all the way through med school, college, no matter what time I got in, she didn't like the microwave, but she'd have a plate in the oven. And when I'd come in and she'd sit down at the kitchen table, just like when I was 3-4 years old and would do my work, we'd sit and we'd talk. And I literally, you can call it over communicating or whatever, I asked her everything and told her everything. And if you start to build that trust and communication with no judgment, remembering the fact, and the other thing is kids like stories. They can't imagine you ever being their age. So, well, I don't know, but when I was your age, I fell out of a tree. Really? What were you running from? I was afraid of dogs, and then there was a cat, and da-da-da. They love all of that. You engage them. The more you engage the children, the more that they will be engaged, continue to be engaged as they get older, rather than, they get the wagging finger all day.
Right. We did some focus groups with young men, junior high and high school. They're tired of being talked at and not listened to.
Well, we're gonna talk more to our audience when we come back from this commercial break. And we'll talk more about get checked, get fit, get moving. Let's do that.
Right. I want to hear the football story too again.
Yes. Right after this commercial break. This is the Health, Wellness, and Lifestyle Program with Linda Dorman and Dr. Donna Christensen with our guest, Doc Riggs. We'll be right back.
Metro New York's port services are currently constrained and challenged in facilitating the handling of international cargo. It's time for a whole new ballgame. Just 55 miles north of the city, Stewart Airport, closed during the base realignment, is an underutilized resource that could be maximized and bring growth to the area and relieve New York City. It's an ideal place for a thriving supply chain center of regional excellence called SCORE. We intend to support the New York and New Jersey Port Authority's commitment to the New York International Plaza, putting it at the forefront of a transformation of regional global trade, telecommunications, and economic growth. A logistics-based regenerative smart city that supplies an interactive platform of data and document interoperability to optimize resources. SCORE will transform this location into a thriving hub that can process and distribute cargo via various methods of transportation, elevating it to one of the world's best intermodal ports. We aim to build a cybersecure network operations center that enables customers to share data in real time across the supply chain and across the whole region, utilizing eco-friendly practices to keep things running efficiently. And it doesn't stop there. Not only will SCORE develop high-speed wireless networks in a data-driven city to improve logistics and facilitate international trade, it will also create critical infrastructure for regional economic development. By optimizing the business environment, attracting startups and investment, supporting the development of high-value industries such as medical, education, technology, and hospitality, creating new employment opportunities for the region. SCORE will inject vibrancy and inspire prosperity in an underutilized area to develop a greener and more livable smart city that thrives, bringing excellence to the Hudson Valley. It's a game changer. Visit IC Logistics to learn how you can support this SCORE economic development initiative at Stewart Airport.
Today we're taking a little vacation on the west end of St. Croix, visiting a seaside restaurant called the Beachside Cafe here at Sandcastles on the Beach.
The atmosphere is just wonderful.
You just feel very welcome when you're here.
Hi!
I'd like to introduce Chris and Ted, who are the owners of Beachside Cafe and also Sandcastles on the Beach. This is amazing!
Thank you.
Sandcastle on the Beach is quiet and friendly, relaxing.
I often entertain guests, and this is the one place I always try to bring people.
Tell us a little bit about the hotel.
Well, the hotel is a 25-room hotel. We have 10 different room types within that. We also have, of course, our greatest asset, the ocean out there, which our side of the island is very calm typically. So it's the best swimming beach and also great for snorkeling.
And just walking, doing a nice walking beach tour.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Best beach access is right here, so we love them.
And we're also fortunate we have just up the way Sandy Point National Park, and then Frederickstead Town is just a mile away. Mm-hmm. And so we're really fortunate to be in this perfect spot.
Well, we are back, and we are so happy to be here with Dr. Griggs, who is going to take us through some interesting programmatic things that he is doing both in his practice and in his foundation. And we thank you for joining us today. So I know that when we left off, we were talking about a program that has 3 legs to it. And then there was something that was said about a football story. That sounds kind of interesting.
Which one?
It was dealing with
Oh, which one? There are multiple.
Really, bringing the concept of health to a group of football players or something?
So yeah, so it was. So I was, for a short period of time, I ended up walking on the football team at Notre Dame, and I made.
I went to St. Mary's, by the way.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, go Irish, South Bend in the house. So you understand. Yes. So I was there from 88 to 92. For a short period of time, I was on the football team, and I made lifelong friends. What happened is soon after I finished med school, I wanted to start this thing called the Fat Guy Club. And where we were former athletes, we were less than our fit selves, I'll say, even though we're ideal athletes in our mind. And I wanted to start the Fat Guy Club, where we would get together, we would walk, we'd share stories, support each other. Well, yeah, that didn't go over so well because some of my colleagues, teammates, friends didn't like being called fat. So they wouldn't participate. Even though, dude, you're a big dude. You were 6'4", 260 pounds at the peak of your athleticism. And now you're not working out anymore. So we want to prevent things like sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, which takes the lives of many men and women unnecessarily for having a neck circumference larger than 17 inches in men. Even though as you think about it, growing up, you make fun of Papa or Dad as he's snoring, sounding like a lawnmower and stopping breathing. So I had to put it on the shelf for years until I came back with a program: Get Checked, Get Fit, Get Moving. I guess it was more people friendly and less offensive to my more girthy friends. Boy, I'm using some good words today, my Notre Dame words today, right? Girthy.
Great. You're doing great with those big words.
So the concept actually originated with my grandmother. My grandmother was a diabetic. When I was 11 years old, she had to give shots, 1 in each arm, 3 across her stomach. We would just rotate the shots for the insulin. And I would be the one, that had to give her the injections. And when I messed it up, I would get popped in the back of the head. Well, she was a cafeteria worker, spent years for a cafeteria worker for middle school, elementary, and high school kids. And she realized that eating off the smaller kids ate off smaller plates. She went to her doctor and said that if she could control her diet and exercise, that maybe she would be able to get away from the needle. And she did something remarkable that most people don't do these days. She asked questions. What should I eat? How much should I eat? Should I drink water? When you say exercise, what is it I should do? The problem that we have nowadays is the moment we hear that, you're pre-hypertensive or pre-diabetic, you can do a lifestyle modification. There's no question. So there's no guidance on what to do. Okay, I'm going to drink, instead of drinking a 12-pack, I'm going to drink a 6-pack. Instead of getting a large at fast food soda and burger, I'm going to get a small. There's no guidance. So what she did was she started, when mama goes on diet modification, everybody goes on diet modification. So needless to say, she had us all eating off a saucer instead of a plate. The portion of her meat, her vegetable, and her starch, as she liked to call it, or her carbs, as we like to call it now, all fit in the side of her hand. The plate is the size of your hand. Your food is the size of your hand. And the thing was, you eat all you take. Take what you want, but eat all you take. Because we're conditioned to eat all the food on our plate. And it was miraculous. If you go at a Thanksgiving, you might get made fun of, the holiday coming up. If you eat off a saucer, what happens is every time you finish that plate, you reassess, am I still hungry? Mm-hmm. Or is this something that I'm just doing because out of habit? But you end up taking in less food, and she would drink a cup of water. We didn't have bottled water back then. She'd drink a cup of water with each meal. Now, she would eat 3 meals and 2 snacks. And so that same week, we decided on a Saturday morning, she woke me up at 5 a.m. and told me we were going to the mall. And I was excited because I was 11. So I figured I could be the first one to get to the arcade and play Space Invaders and Pac-Man and Galaga. So I grabbed my little sock of quarters and I had them with me. And I was excited. She didn't say anything. We go to the mall, and when we get there, the gate's down, like everything closed. I'm like, Ma, it's closed. Don't worry, baby. Just keep walking. It'll open up. Well, we kept walking around the mall. This is my hometown in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We kept walking. And well, let's go past and see is it open again. Man, it's not open. Ma, the gate. And I said, Ma, the gate's not open. And why they got all these old people in here at the top of my lungs? Now, why she would be carrying a belt in her purse at 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't know, but she proceeded to take me downstairs. I went to the women's bathroom and she taught me why it was rude to say that, so much so that the mall security came to the women's bathroom and asked what was going on. Can you believe she told him what happened? He said, "Don't worry, Miss Briggs, I'll watch the door," and let her finish. Like, seriously? So from that experience, besides me having to go around for the rest of that morning, I had to apologize. People that weren't even there, "I'm sorry, excuse me, I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry, excuse me," for the rest of the whole morning. But that one morning evolved from me at 11 years old. It eventually evolved to be my grandmother, myself, my grandfather, my uncle, my aunt, my sister, and 3 girl cousins walking in the mall for exercise. And sadly, I lost my grandmother in 2014. As you can tell, we were close, but she's gone from like 220 pounds to she was 140 pounds and was on no medication. So that's my inspiration. Get checked. Climb your family tree. First of all, have those conversations with your family. Ask them, what conditions do you have? And at what age were you diagnosed? What works for you? What doesn't? And how often do you go to the doctor? As a matter of fact, can I go with you to go to the doctor? Then, of course, that's to get checked, going to the doctor, knowing your numbers, asking those difficult questions. Get fit. Healthy food is simple. It spoils. If you put it in the kitchen and you leave it there on a hot day and you come back and smell it, that's healthy food, believe it or not. It's whole foods. It's the one with the simplest ingredients. Eating off of a saucer, knowing that your meals, 5-3-5. Your food should fit into the side of the palm of your hand. Your meat, your vegetable, and your starch or your carb should fit into the palm of your hand. Can
I just make sure I get it? So I should be eating. Let me make sure that I can see my hand. I should be eating. My entire meal should be able to fit into my palm.
Your entire portion size, the portion of your meat, the portion of your vegetable, and the portion of your carbohydrate or your starch. With the water, we can say bottles of water now, but with water. If you're still hungry, go back and eat again. Instead of overeating. 3 meals, 2 snacks, and my grandmother stopped eating. She would stop eating, and it made sense. If you look at the way that the pineal gland works with the secretion of melatonin, the way that energy is stored, HMG-CoA reductase is what the statins work on. See, I'm being smart now. Sorry, y'all. The statins, like your Lipitor and those drugs, they work for an enzyme that's around pretty much predominantly at night. It works 3rd shift. So it doesn't make sense. It's like serving a subpoena. You're trying to serve a subpoena and give a pill during the day when the enzyme isn't even around. So which is why a lot of doctors have people take their statins at night. HMG-CoA reductase, when you eat too late, takes all the energy that you eat and it stores it in the bloodstream as fat.
So is this why this whole popular craze on intermittent fasting is something that individuals are really hopping on? In other words, don't eat after a certain amount of time.
Exactly. And the most natural way to do
difference.
It makes a huge difference. And the natural way to do things is that it's based on, if you base it on the day. If you're winding down, start winding your entire body down to go to sleep. 2 to 3 hours before you go to sleep. Turn off your business. Start winding down that TV. No coffee, no food after 2-3 hours before you go to bed. This is what my grandmother actually did. You don't want to exercise too close to going to bed because you'll get hyped up and you won't be able to sleep. If you do that and try to get my grandmother would, when I had to be home when the street lights came on when I was a kid, and I was in bed soon thereafter. But if you follow the natural pattern and sync yourself with the natural circadian rhythm, it's amazing how your body will respond. The last part is get moving. Find something that you like to do and do it. It's ironic that I end up walking on a football team. I hate lifting weights. And like a little kid, I promised myself I would never lift another weight again in my life. So there are other people that like that. I like to walk. I like to run. I like playing basketball when I'm in shape. There are people that like gardening. Anything that you like to do is healthy. You wouldn't leave a car just sitting in the driveway. What happens when we just sit a car in front of the house or in the driveway? It starts to rot. It starts to decay. It's the same thing with our body. We're made to move, and you'll feel better that way. That's the Get Checked, Get Fit, Get Moving program. And I have it down to a 30-second speech, a 3-hour lecture, a college course, and everything in between.
I'm going to go back to something you made on your website. We want to make sure individuals get a chance to know you through your foundation website, your primary healthcare website. But one of the things, I mean, I'm going to have to really adjust myself. I'm going to get to my plates. I'm going to adjust my plate, and I'm going to look at it. Are we fitting my portion sizes in my hand? But the USDA, you say, recommends something that will help. There's a guide that individuals can follow that's put out by our government. And I think that this is worth sharing as well, the www.choosemyplate.gov.
Yes.
Okay.
Choosemyplate.gov. It actually, there's an actual physical plate that are used that people can use to guide themselves. And it says basically the same thing. Their plate is a little bit bigger than the size of their hand. I just like something that's individualized because, you know, you end up going to a lot of conferences, you go to dinners, and it's easy if you can just guide by the size of your hand, your portion size. You know, one of the things that we battle all the time, and we talked about it recently on an interview that I did, was that, you know, we show our affection with food.
Absolutely.
And, you know, if I really like you, I'm gonna give you a little bit more. If I love you, I'm gonna give you so much your eyes are gonna start watering, and I'm gonna stand over you and make sure you eat it. You all right? Did you get enough?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Culturally, that is very true. And if you don't eat enough, then you've got an issue, problem, or concern.
Yes.
Yes. It's very difficult.
Yeah. How many times have you heard someone say, "Oh, you look great. You lost the weight, but look, like, don't lose no more. Stop. That's enough now. That's enough. You
Or
get too small."
or when I was more overweight, people would say, "Oh, you're getting fat," but for them it was a good thing.
Right.
You know, I used to get insulted and I, you know, okay. But it was, they like plump.
Yeah. They were saying that you look prosperous.
Yeah.
Oh, and it is
I
cultural.
went ahead and lost that weight anyway.
And those nuances are very important to different cultures. And so how do we even address that is another question for probably another show, you know, the cultural diversity and how we approach health altogether. Do you find in your practice that you know, you're from different groups, different cultures, ethnic backgrounds, that there are some distinct differences in how they approach their healthcare with you?
Well, there is, and it all depends. It all goes back to the kitchen table and the conversations that are had at home. What I typically like to do, and I've had my small modicums of success, is I let the community lead the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You cannot, there's no way I could live in New Orleans for 30 years and try to replace the staples, the red beans and rice. I never forget one year I tried to do a healthy crawfish boil with low sodium. I thought they were going to throw me in the pot.
We're going to get run out of town.
Yeah, so it has to be fast, doesn't last, is what my grandmother would say. So it has to be a gradual thing. I went to the barbershop. I did a barbershop initiative. I've done it several. And one of the first ones I did almost 20 years ago, I bought vegetarian pizza for everyone to try and sample. And I went to the back and went to the back. I think I had to use the restroom. I came back. They'd thrown the pizza away and ordered a pepperoni. So you got to be gradual with it. You got to respect. Doc, you don't know what good pizza is, man. You eating that? Let me get you a good pizza. Let me let you see. It just, you can't throw, no matter how smart you are, you have to ask the community what they want first before you can give them what you know they need.
Right.
Does that make sense?
We're getting ready to start a program in one of our local communities in St. Croix, but it has to begin with talking to the community. What are their issues? What do they care about? What do they want to see improved, or what would they like to see the community work on, while we are also doing health screenings and making sure they have access to health care. But you got to talk, you have to do the whole thing. You have to meet people where they are.
And you have to give it to them. Like, so part of the barbershop initiative, I started empowering the barbers. And I would actually, my friend, Stan the barber, I made him a health figure. He's a health authority. And I would do social media with Stan the barber. Well, Stan the barber says it. And it eventually, you know, my grandmother said, give the gift away. It eventually has evolved to the point, all I have to do is the camera pans over to me. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. Surely is. Yeah. See what he said? That's it.
Stan the barber. What a great concept is to really, because we worked through our barbers, our salons,
and our beauticians.
And beauticians to really stylists, as they may want to be called, to get the message out about COVID-19. So we know that type of grassroots messaging in the community absolutely works in places where people congregate and trust. the people that work with them. I mean,
Well, the thing is, typically the solutions for the community will come from the community if you spend enough time with them. If you spend enough time, just like a patient, as they come in, 100% of the time, the patient will tell you the problem. And if you listen long enough, the studies have shown 80% of the time, they'll tell you the solution. It's the same thing with the community. You were talking about community health education. It's all about time, and time shows respect. I'm blocking out this time. I'm not on my phone. I want to hear what you say. It's respect. And it's amazing the gifts that the community will give you to help heal themselves and heal you if you spend that time with them.
so as you talk about your friends that did not like the terminology fat, what other things that can we do as we talk about men's health that actually, are there any additional pearls of wisdom that you can provide to our brothers and our uncles and our sons and our male friends, colleagues in the workplace, that says we do care about your health in a real intangible way? You do not have to wait until it's an emergency or till the pain is to the point where you can no longer bear it. From your perspective as a man and as a healthcare provider and someone who obviously knows what you're talking about very well and practice it, what are some of the takeaways?
So one of the big things is, realize you're not alone and take someone with you. It doesn't have to be a child. It's great modeling for a child if you want to go with your child to the doctor, but take your best friend, take your partner, and accountability thing. Hey man, let's go. I'm gonna go with you, you go with me. And whatever happens, we're gonna go through this together. It's the feeling of alone. We're all afraid of the same thing. And what happens is as we get older and things start to bug us as men, because we know we should have been to the doctor a long time ago, when things start to bug it, this is going to be terrible. And then, the other thing, stay away from Google. That is not your friend. Mr. Google, Dr. Google is not your friend.
Right.
If you stub your toe, Dr. Google says you're going to die. If you clip your fingernail too much, Dr. Google says you're going to die. And the first thing they do when they come into the doctor's office, they bring, look, what Google said.
Right. Yeah.
Google will scare you. Get a real friend. Take your friend with you and go to the doctor. I'm not shy about giving my email address out, docgriggs1@gmail.com. Send me any questions. If I have to zoom in, put a hat on backwards, look like your play cousin or your uncle or your third brother from your daddy's side, I do that so people can feel empowered to ask the difficult questions. There's no bad questions when you're talking about your health. Men and women, you are the expert on you. No one knows your body better than you. If the healthiest thing for you is something you won't do, go ahead and say it. I hate celery. If celery will have me live until I'm 400 years old, then I guess I'm not going to be 400 years old. I'm not going to eat celery. You need to tell your doctor, hey, doc, I appreciate that, but I'm not going to do it. Or I took this pill and it made me feel crazy. So rather than throw it under the bed, especially if it's a hypertensive med or a med that you need, tell your doctor, this won't work. It makes me feel like less of a man. Do you have something else? What can we do about it?
And the weekend athlete is just, that whole concept needs to go out the door.
And,
Exactly.
just waiting instead of get your regular checkups. And because most things are controllable or preventable. We don't want you to have a stroke at 46.
Right.
We don't want you to have a heart attack or something. We don't want you to end up in a diabetic coma before you know that you even have diabetes, like has happened to some people in my family.
Or having limbs amputated unnecessarily so because these things were prevented. Your grandmother, I hope that you elevate that story into some type of documentary or a presentation, because what she did is she committed to using her food as medicine. And you mentioned that on your website, that food is medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And to not look at it as comfort or other things that actually do not afford us the best health, but afford us the opportunities to get ill if we're eating too much sugar and we're eating too many carbs and we're eating things late at night that get stored in our fat, in our blood system as fat. That was revolutionary right there. So
Obesity is was what we were discussing and on the panel that we were both on, and it's a disease that is just creating havoc in the Black community and other communities as well. But you might want to say a word about obesity.
So I do a bi-weekly show on blackdoctor.org called Get Checked, ironically called Get Checked, Get Fit, Get Moving. We just started, we did our second show yesterday. Ellis Dean is the co-host. But our topic yesterday, and it's for Black men, the big piece of chicken is killing Black men.
Oh, yes. I saw the picture. The post.
Overeating is killing us because it's causing the excess storage causes inflammation. Inflammation leads to diabetes. Inflammation leads to hypertension. Inflammation leads to cancerous states. Inflammation leads to the hypercholesterolemia or high cholesterol. So learning our triggers and our cues and realizing the problem, one of the problems we have these days is we can eat while we're working. We can eat while we're exercising. We can eat while we're driving. We can eat while we're eating. Food. We've never in our lives has food been this abundantly available. So what happens is you tend to forget your triggers of what it feels like to be hungry or thirsty, like truly hungry, like little kid hungry after you've been swimming. If y'all remember that, after you'd be swimming, you'd be starving. I can't tell you the last time I let myself be that hungry. And that's what it goes back to, the 5-3-5, knowing the different signals when your body's telling you you're thirsty as opposed to when you're hungry. A lot of times it'll be the same. You'll crave something sweet or salty, and your body's just trying to tell you, "Hey, I need water. I'm 67% water. We need water." And instead, we gravitate to those things that have a lot of water in them, like that are food. So it's get checked, get fit, get moving.
That's interesting. You said something because we have just a couple of minutes left. I think it's important that the thing that seems to be a driver is this inflammation, both in men and women. But sometimes you think of inflammation from a cosmetic perspective. In just the 2 minutes we have just very, very few time. Can you just give us a little bit of information about what actually is inflammation?
Inflammation, any of those things that you hear the term itis means inflammation, and they typically can cause pain. Inflammation means that something has caused the tissue to swell, for lack of in simplest terms. And that swelling can jam up the works for processes that are supposed to happen, like liver processing, like the pancreas working the way that it should. That swelling can cause the insides of your blood vessels to get narrower and become more sticky and can lead to clots. That swelling can block the signals, help block the signals for your cells to stop multiplying, and can lead to cancer. So inflammation it's problematic, and it's something that you can eat by coloring up your plate with fruits and vegetables. There are certain vegetables. There's an anti-inflammatory diet that you can look up after the show that works. The big thing is talk to your underutilized nutritionist. Doctors are great. We know a lot of things. We're smart in the terms. We've memorized a lot of stuff, but the people that are experts on food are your dietitians, your nutritionists, and people.
Absolutely.
Talk to your mama and your grandmama and the cooks in your family about what works. Believe it or not, food is medicine, and it works.
Outstanding.
Well, we really thank you for joining us today. And men out there, we want you to catch up to us, even surpass us, but at least catch up to us in your life expectancy, okay? We want to keep you around a while.
We want to be around. Thank y'all for having me.
Yes. And before you leave us, can you give us just your website and one more time your email address, because it sounds like you're open to the whole wide world emailing you because you got great information and a remarkable energy, I might add.
Thank you. The website is www.docgriggs.com, DOCGRIGGS.com. My email address is docgriggs1, DOCGRIGGS, the number 1, @gmail.com.
Outstanding.
Great.
So another installment has been completed of the Health, Wellness, and Lifestyle with Linda Dorman and Dr. Donna Christensen with our amazing guest, full of energy for this Wednesday, Dr. Eric Griggs here on WSTX Bloomberg Radio, our TV network, Roku, Apple TV, and many others. So thank you. We look forward to seeing you next week, and have a great, healthy Wednesday.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.